Dolly friends, and happy Flashback Friday. As you can see, as delivered and promised, my favorite dolls. Um, I should say doll. I do love my rag doll, and I have very many different incarnations of the beloved and coveted Mrs. Beasley. She is from the TV series Family Affair that started in 1966 and went all the way through 1971. And there is a lot to talk about and unpack with Family Affair, especially the little girl Anissa Jones, who played Buffy in the TV series, who had the beloved Mrs. Beasley doll. And I'm gonna say that I do have several of the original Mrs. Beasley dolls. And that is my original one that I got for Christmas as a child. I had taken her with me to a party, and some little girl tried to snatch her away, like literally, like snatch her and take her from me. And she's got like 3 slash marks across her chest where the little girl tried to tear her away from me. And that was traumatic, but I loved her even still. She was difficult to repair because this material is not, a type of material that can easily be repaired. It frays very easily. It's a very thin cotton. And I'll get into some other things about that. Ashton Drake did do a reproduction of this doll in 2000, which I do have. I have a porcelain version, and I have the reproduction, something similar to this version. I also have this doll in 2 different versions. This is the non-talking one, and I just love this rag doll. She's so cute. And let's see, there's a tag, I believe, on here. Yes, this is her Mattel tag. I don't know if you could see that. Mattel. And this one is from 1973. So as I say, the show went through 71, but Mrs. Beasley was a beloved, really, like everybody loved this doll. Everybody wanted this little doll. And I even have a lunchbox that has a thermos, a matching thermos that's put away. But I have an old metal Family Affair Mrs. Beasley lunchbox and thermos. I have 2 other Mattel dolls that were produced. It was Buffy. The little girl's name was Buffy, and she is in a talking version. And that version, I want to say she was 11 inches or so. And she had a very small Mrs. Beasley doll, a little rag doll that she came with, and then it had a little vinyl head. And then I had a Tootie version. I'm going to insert photos at the end of the video so you could see what I'm talking about. And I still have the Tootie doll and her little teeny tiny little micro Mrs. Beasley doll. And they each had their glasses. So the taller Mattel Buffy that talked, you pull her string, she had a little flower on her pull string, and she talked, and she has her little Mrs. Beasley with the little tiny glasses. And then I have another little Tootie. And I know my Barbie collectors out there know what I'm talking about, because every now and again you'll see the little Tootie size version of Buffy and her little Mrs. Beasley doll. I am going to, she does work, but I want to be very careful. She has 11 phrases, and I'm not going to pull them all because she is an old gal. Very old. She still has her tush tattoo. And this one is very old because it's 1967. So I will say one thing before I play her, and that is that much like Cindy Brady's Kitty Carryall doll, and how Kitty had the original Madame Alexander funny rag doll, the same thing happened with Mrs. Beasley. And a long time ago, I do have a Rushton collection. You know, those of you who know, there are a lot of Rushton collectors out there. And by that, I mean the rubber face dolls with the plush bodies, and their animals sometimes. I have a Jack and a Jill that I collect Rushtons, and they're also long in the vault. And maybe hopefully one day I can pull them out. But I bought a Jack and Jill set, and I knew right away looking at that Jill that she resembled Mrs. Beasley. And then I remembered, yes, for the pilot and the first couple of shows, Buffy, Anissa Jones, would hold that particular Rushton doll, the Jill doll, and I'll insert a photo of her as well. But then, like Kitty Carryall, they moved on. Mattel, Mattel, we love Mattel. They wanted a piece of the pie, and they knew the best way to do it was to market their very own doll. And so along came Mrs. Beasley. And when I tell you this is my most treasured doll from childhood, I really, really mean it. And like I say, even the horror of having some little girl try to snatch her away and steal her away from me. Even when I was a kid, I got for my birthday the several versions of the Mattel Mrs. Beasley in the little forms, and those got taken away from me right at my birthday party. I don't know who did it, but she was that loved that people would try to take her all the time. So I always had to keep an eye open for her. One day, while thrifting, I found a vintage Mrs. Beasley, all complete, because they usually they lose their little collars and their aprons. Even I would use the apron on other dolls, and but I found one minty mint at the thrift store, and you just know I had to scoop her up. I loved her. She's also in the Dolly Vault somewhere, but let me see if I can get this lovely to say at least a phrase without hurting her.
If you could have 3 wishes, what would you wish for?
And if you could have 3 wishes, what would you wish for? I would wish, oh my goodness, so many wishes. And I thank you, Mrs. Beasley, for always asking the cutest questions. She speaks beautifully. She's just beautiful, and I don't want to hurt her. Look at the hands. Mattel always did such a beautiful job with the hands, and I love the little watermelon smile. And those eyes just bring me right back to childhood. I love her so much, her original little square granny glasses. And I guess that I understood somebody from the Star Trek family actually had the voice for her, if I can remember. I'll try to maybe insert a photo of that as well. But let me know in the comment box if you remember Mrs. Beasley at all, if you recall seeing her around, maybe a friend, or perhaps you've seen her in, like I say, the Barbie version with a little Tootie size Mrs. Beasley, or Anissa Jones, Buffy and Mrs. Beasley. And there were a lot of cool characters in that movie. There's Brian Keith, who's a really, really great actor who played the father. He was a widower, and so he was trying to raise his children on his own. And one of them was actress Kathy Garver. She played Sissy, who was the older sister, who really basically had the mothering role of the children, which were Buffy and her twin Jody. They were twins. And her twin brother is Johnny Whitaker. And you would know that name because Johnny Whitaker has been in so many movies. He was a Disney kid, and he's still alive today. He does a lot of Comic-Cons and movie cons and things like that. Poor Anissa Jones, though, the little girl who played Buffy, she didn't fare very well. It was later turned out that she had kind of an abusive childhood. I don't know if that was on set or after, but she ended up passing away 5 years after the show ended, which is really sad. I remember I felt really bad about hearing that. I also loved, they had a French, he was a butler, but he was more of a nanny, and he also took care of the children, and his name was Mr. French. And Mr. French was played by an actor named Sebastian Cabot. And for some reason, he always reminded me of my dad. And Sebastian Cabot is also a wonderful English actor, and he's been around, or had been around for quite some time. So the people that were in this series were really, really veteran actors. They were really great. It was a wholesome show. And I want to say she was the precursor to all other dolls on TV. Really, truly. Like, then later on when the Brady Bunch came out with Kitty Carryall, I really think that it was the appeal of Mrs. Beasley and the fame that she had that made TV shows realize that, hey, we can cash in on this, and you put a doll in the show and boom, kids are going to tune in. And I certainly did. I was very, very, very young. I think I might have been 3 or 4 when I got my first Mrs. Beasley doll. And I've loved her ever since. Ashton Drake comes out. I think they came out this past Christmas with an ornament of Mrs. Beasley, which I still want to get, but it's kind of like, I think it's like 54, 59 bucks or something. I'm hoping that it comes down in price because she's only about this big of an ornament. But I would like to get that and add her to my Mrs. Beasley collection, because you best believe I had the color forms. I don't know, you guys are too young to remember about the color forms, but they were vinyl peel, like paper doll type things, but they were made of like a vinyl, and they were a high color. And I had color forms of her. I had puzzles, anything that had Mrs. Beasley or had to do with Mrs. Beasley. You bet I had it and I wanted it. And even now, I still scour and look for Mrs. Beasley items because I love her so very much. And like I said, I do have a talking version of this rag doll, but she's put away. I have the, I think I even have a couple of the original Rushton rubber face Jills that they used as the Mrs. Beasley for the pilot shows. So that is it for my Flashback Friday. I really want to thank everyone who participates and joins in the tag. You can't imagine how much fun it is for me to go visit your channels and see what cool things that you're showing. Like I said, it doesn't have to be as crazy and as old as my beloved dolls. I appreciate looking at anything, even if it's a flashback of a year or two ago. And you can use anything, toys, Weebles, Play School, Fisher Price. I mean, you know, don't be afraid to join in the fun. It's always great. It's nice to get some foot traffic on your channel and get people to come over and watch. Don't forget to leave those comments in the comment boxes so I can make sure to go check you out. And other people who view the comments can also say, hey, I'm going to go check out their channel. They say they have a video up. Let's go over to their channel and check them out. It's great. I love it. And you know what? It's just a wonderful thing when we can love, honor, and appreciate the toys and dolls that mean so much to us. And you mean a lot to me. So I want to thank you. I want to thank all of my subs, old and new. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.